everyone. Welcome to Untamed Minds. My name is Jessica and I'm your host. Thank you all so much for tuning in today's session. The reason why I have started this podcast is because I find it really important for, people to talk about mental health and just acknowledging it, especially with all the stigma within our Hmong community. So I strive to kind of break that stigma, even if it's just one at a time. So I have brought a very amazing guest to share about a topic that our Hmong community don't really talk about. For today's session, we're going to be discussing mental health specifically with Hmong boys or Hmong man. So if we can all welcome Kong Cheng Lee. He goes by Kong, but Kong Cheng Lee, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, I guess like fun fact or so, and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. My name is Kong Cheng Lee. I go by Kong. I knew Jessica ever since she was like a little girl. I hung out with her aunties and uncles growing up. I knew them like when I was like 7, 8 years old. We were buddies growing up. They taught us how to play sports, everything. Um, a little bit about myself. I love playing sports, as you can tell. I love playing football, basketball, volleyball. Um, I love going to the gym, working out, going to school now, going to be a nutritionist. Um, Hopefully, I can affect our community that way. Uh, yeah, that's pretty much it about myself. Not too much to
Yeah.
say. Yeah,
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for, just being on here with me today, especially on my podcast. I know you've been following my platform for a long time, so
yeah,
it's amazing that, you're being open to sharing about your lived experiences, especially as a Hmong man and talking about mental health. I feel like it's very important for us to talk about this topic today, only
yeah,
because a lot of the Hmong men that I know are pretty stoic, like they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
really talk about mental health. So the fact that you're on here today to specifically talk about that, I'm really grateful. And yes, I've known Kong for quite a long time now. Way back then when I was a kid, he used to steal my bike. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. I
I
just
think I
never
stole
let you
his
ride the
bike.
bike. I just never let you ride the bike. That was it. No.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a lot of history there, but he's a really good friend of mine as well. So to kind of ease into today's topic, I do have an icebreaker question.
Okay.
So what is one Hmong tradition or like cultural practice that you find particularly meaningful or unique and why?
Just in general with the Hmong community, how we all get together, like when we have like big parties where we come and chop meat and cook and stuff like that. I know it's like very gender role based, but it's always a good time to bring everybody together, and you see people that you don't usually see on a daily basis, and you get to talk and catch up. I I love that part about the Hmong, Hmong tradition, or that's something I want to keep it going. But I think now with the new generation, it's become less and less of a like tradition. It seems more like it's just chore work for them. But they don't understand like the meaning behind it. I like the meaning behind it. Like it's like a big party. We all come together. Do this, um, catch up, have a good time. Always come for like a good time and stuff like that. I'd rather have it like that than a funeral. Usually when funerals like that, it's always like a sad moment, and I feel like that's the only time where you're kind of like you don't really want to be there. But I like when it's like weddings, and whether you're just like you're ordained or you do something small, people come around. It's always just good to see everybody, be able to catch up, because we're all adulting and everybody lives their own lives. We're never always going to see each other, so that's something
Mhm.
that I do like from the Hmong tradition.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like a small birthday party. We all
Yeah, yeah,
come together and
yeah,
hang out and catch up. Yeah, that is a beautiful piece. And thank you for sharing that. So
yeah.
for me, I would say just the gutia part of it,
Oh yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like that
definitely.
part is also very unique because like my grandma, like my natai, she sings a lot of gutia and I don't understand it,
Yeah,
but when she does sing it, it makes me sad.
Yeah,
because it's like a double meaning, like a deeper meaning behind what she's saying, and it's very poetic,
yeah,
very soul touching, and I think that's one thing that I find really unique and important to keep. Sadly, the new generation, we're kind of straying away from that, but I think that will always be a really important piece or part of my identity.
yeah,
So yeah, so that's my answer to the
yeah.
question.
I do
Um,
like it though, because
mhm.
I talked to my mom about it too now because my mom's really good with it, and I asked her to teach me. When she taught me, I'm like, I don't even understand it. It's like there's no point in me trying to learn it when I don't understand it. Because she tells me how to say stuff. I'm like, I don't really know the meaning behind it. Like so damn
Mhm.
poetic.
Yeah, it's like a different language.
Yeah, it's a whole different language. Just like when
Yeah.
like shaman people know one name and then they start speaking
Mhm.
their language. It's like they're like, you can kind of understand here and there, but like, nah, you don't even understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, like, you understand the surface level, like,
Yeah, surface level.
yeah,
The
but
meaning,
the
yeah,
deeper meaning, yeah,
yeah,
it's totally different. So, again, thank you for answering that icebreaker question,
yeah,
get to know a little bit more about you.
yeah.
So, kind of diving into the topic of mental health, especially from, like, a man's, like, perspective, right? Just kind of, like, based on, like, your experiences, like, how do traditional Hmong cultural expectations kind of, like, shape the roles and responsibilities of, like, a Hmong man in your community?
Yeah, the thing is like in the Hmong community, it kind of sucks, but like the man is like supposedly they're the head of the household. So it's like they're like everybody always looks to them. So if you're somebody that messes up or whatever, you're like considered a mess also. And you're pretty much you have to run your household. So then a lot of times, especially with us as men growing up, that's all our parents ever knew. So our parents they put that pressure on us, and they don't understand that. That's why I do respect women a lot too, because women they do get a lot of the you know bad end of the stick than men do, because men they look more higher in regard of women, but they also have a lot of responsibilities that they have to you know what you call that like they have to match, because if you don't match up to their responsibilities, then you're looked down upon, and that can affect your health level, your mental health, and you don't even know about it. That's affecting you. And a lot of little kids, like when I was growing up, I didn't have a dad, so I didn't have nobody to kind of like look up to. I just looked up to my brothers, and my brothers didn't know at that time they were still young themselves. They didn't know what to do, or how to you know be a man in a way, don't understand what that how that affected them. And I think that affected them a lot growing up too, because they I grew up with them. I can see that they had a lot of mental health issues that they weren't able to talk about because they didn't really know who to go to. And then eventually we all just got closer that way. We kind of just talked to each other. We kind of figured out like, sometimes it's better to kind of like talk it out. Because me, I'm somebody that it's really hard for me to talk about my mental health issues or just in general. And then what I do with that is I kind of toss it to the side, or I just make jokes about it. And eventually, like like everybody always says, it's like a bottle, like a soda bottle. You just keep shaking it enough, it's gonna eventually explode.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think just like kind of hearing you share like your experience, similar but like different from my own too, because obviously,
Yeah,
I'm a Hmong woman, so
yeah,
I do see where like the Hmong woman like their perspective of it or like their stance
yeah,
from it. So I do appreciate the fact that like you acknowledge that, Hmong women, they do get the short end of the stick.
yeah,
But the
yeah,
thing is we also don't realize that that's a lot of pressure that we're putting on Hmong men too.
yeah, yeah,
And that's something that we often don't talk about. And then you mentioned that, like, you grew up without a dad, and you looked up to your older brothers. Do you kind of feel like, kind of looking up to them and seeing their mental health challenges that they were going through? Did that trickle down to you as like the younger brother? Did you feel like it's kind of like a domino effect, like, did you feel like
yeah,
their mental health challenges kind of trickle down to you?
yeah. In a way, yeah. Like what they were going through, it kind of affected me too in a way. Like you said, it's like
Mhm.
a domino effect. And it just sucks because we didn't really have nobody to talk to about that. And then when we were younger, all we would do is just, best thing we could do is just, hey, let's just drink alcohol. That'll probably like push it down, and you don't think about it. But then eventually, like I said, you could just start seeing that people, even with me, I see my brothers and I could see them fall into like depression, but they don't know that they're in depression. And then eventually, us as brothers is, hey, we know that he's in like depression now. Let's go pull him out. Let's just go talk to him. You know, um,
Mhm.
there are some people that I know that they don't have that type of relationship or have somebody like that where when you're in depression or you're in your mental health struggles, nobody just comes and talk to you and like, hey, how are you? I mean, just a simple like, how are you, or how are you doing? It can affect somebody so much when they're going through that type of phase. But I do understand that sometimes when you're in that phase, you do want to be alone. You probably don't want to talk to nobody. You're probably lost
Mhm.
in your own thoughts. But then again, sometimes it's just better to have somebody be there for you because eventually it could lead to something like committing suicide or something worse.
Mhm. Yeah. I agree with you on that part. I mean, like, I've experienced depression too, so and, like, being alone, it's like a silent killer, like,
Yeah,
you want to be alone. But the thing is, like, one advice I would give to people who have felt this way is, I understand you want to be alone, but don't be alone.
yeah,
Because when you are alone, you are allowing your negative thoughts to eat you alive, and, like, you never want that,
yeah,
right? So, I'm glad that you had that, like, support system with you.
yeah.
And then I know you mentioned that, like, as a Hmong man, you tend to just bottle your emotions and
Hmm.
kind of push to the side, drink alcohol, or like drown yourself in alcohol
Yeah.
and, kind of just forget about it. Would you mind like kind of just explaining like the process behind that? Like why do you think that was like the best way to cope with it?
I think it's like for me wise, I think that's all we ever saw and knew growing up. Because like as a Hmong man, you look at other either Hmong man, other like guys around your age, they don't really talk about their feelings. When stuff do happen, they just drown in alcohol, and then eventually, when they drown enough in alcohol, they let it all out. I feel like
Mhm,
we as Hmong man, we don't know how to cope with it, or we don't know that it is a issue. Like mental health is really a issue for us. Because even our
mhm,
like our fathers, they don't tell us like, what mental health is because they're so worried about survival, worried about caring for their family
yeah,
that they themselves they drown in their own issues. And like you said, it's a trickling effect that it comes down to, even the daughters or the sisters. It comes down to them too, just not the Hmong men. But I just feel like the thing is in the Hmong community, Hmong men, they're just like people just have so much high regards with Hmong men. Like if you go talk to like OGs out there, they don't really ask like, oh, like who's your wife or who's the daughter. They ask like, oh, who's the husband, who's the son and stuff like that. They usually talk about the Hmong man first before they ask about the wife or the sister or the daughter.
mhm.
And,
And like how do you feel about that? The fact that like OGs they tend to just ask like, "Oh, cái lên từ tụi bọn nhà," or like,
yeah, right.
"Cái gì luôn bé luôn dạ," like how do you feel as like a Hmong man or like a son? How do you feel about that?
I mean, me personally, I want like the new generation to kind of change it because I feel like as much as I love their OGs and I understand that they were in a time of survival, and with survival they had to like, okay, we have to look up to people, we have to find people to follow. But with us, I feel like we shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be so judgmental. Because like within my situation, I ain't gonna lie, my dad he was like a smoke addict. He loved smoking, like smoking opium. He loved smoking cigarettes. And then when my dad passed away, they looked at like all the OGs that used to always like come around. They're like, "Oh man, your kids, y'all gonna end up like your dad. You're gonna be dead. You're gonna be smokers. You're gonna be this and that and stuff." Like, and I think as a kid, it kind of sucks because when you hear about it so much, they pretty much it into you. Like you hear it so much like, oh, you're gonna be a drug addict, you're gonna be this and that. And then like growing up, that's all I heard. And they're always like, you're never gonna make it, you're never gonna do whatever, you're gonna be like locked up. And then the good thing is I had a really really supportive mother. Even though she wasn't like out there making like plenty of money for us. She always kept the family together, and she always like told us like, don't mind what people say. She's like, I'm gonna go out there and I will do it for us. And I think that really helped me a lot as a Hmong man, or as somebody that's going through stuff like that. I know there are different households that they don't even have that type of support system from either parents, and for them that's where they fall downward, whether they go to like deep into drugs, or whether they become like get into gangs and stuff like that. They try to go find something that like I said will get their minds off it. um
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean,
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
yeah,
Props to your mom,
yeah,
and your
definitely,
mom's very sweet too. I love
yeah,
her. Is she's a very she sounds like a very strong woman, and I'm glad that, even though you didn't like your dad wasn't present, or your dad, you didn't grow up with a dad, your
yeah,
mom was there to be half mom, half dad to you guys. And you mentioned that, people who don't have that kind of support in the household, they tend to, fall into the wrong group of crowds, or to, using drug or become like a drug addict, alcoholism.
right,
Well, like, what do you think the reason is? Like, for me personally, I feel like it's because they don't know any other way to cope with it, and like maybe because they're feeling lonely, right? They
yeah,
just want companionship,
yep,
and like they don't have that.
yeah,
So like just from your experiences, or like friends, family members that you may have that have fallen into that type of like path,
yeah.
what do you like? Is there like a pattern you see to like why they join those type of gangs, or they fall into, using drugs and alcohol?
From what I've experienced or what I've seen, like you said, it's probably a coping mechanism. It's like try to get rid of it, like thoughts and stuff. And like you said, I think a lot of them they're just very lonely. They just want to go find companionship, find something to, like just do something instead of just being at home alone, or just feeling like you're lonely. Another thing is I could kind of see is they try to find people to relate to them, because a lot of times when they do fall into crowds, you can see that they kind of relate to each other somehow, whether they come from broken homes, or whether they're just like we don't care about life or certain things. It's just I think they fall into the wrong crowds because they feel like they can relate, but there other people out there that can also relate to them, but it's just that they probably don't have that type of resource to go out there and find that find that help or find those people. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, like having a support group is really, really important, especially when you're going through something so dark and negative, right? So, and like, I know earlier I used like wrong crowd, but like that's just my perspective of it. The thing is that like some people who they do join gangs, or become like a gang member, they might think that they're joining the right crowd,
yeah,
because growing up, like I had a lot of cousins and uncles who were part of like gangs too, and when like they passed, like they showed up,
yeah, yeah,
they showed up a lot more than some of the family members ever could.
right,
And I
right,
think that's the thing about, joining these type of groups is, although the things that they do, it's something that not a lot of people would agree to, they have a
right,
deep love for each other, love and support.
right,
And like I saw that,
yeah,
so just wanted to clear that up for the
yeah. No,
listeners out there.
that's exactly, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
for sure. So like I think it all comes down to they wanting so, like, people wanting to feel loved.
Yeah,
People wanting to feel a place where they can belong, or a place where they can call home,
right.
people they can call family, right? And obviously, talking about mental health, it's really hard, for, like what you said, majority of Hmong men to talk about.
Mm.
Do you think it's because of, like, some stigmas that are associated with, like, mental health as, like, preventing Hmong men to talk about, their mental health or seeking any type of help?
Yeah, especially because I grew up in the era where Hmong men, you're like a tough guy. You can't talk about stuff like that. You talk stuff about like that, then you makes you a soft, and people would just start picking on you about it. Even though they have problems themselves. Like you're a you're a man. You're supposed to, you're supposed to like not talk about nothing like that. And then when I've seen Hmong men, they talk about it. They're like, oh, they make fun of them, like, why are you so soft? Or they start like putting them down. Like I've seen it even like with friends and family. I mean, like when it's stuff to joke around about, yeah, you can. But when if it's something like really serious, like mental health issues, I feel like we should just come together and talk about it. And just it's better to talk about it and get it out of your system and off your shoulders. And you can even get perspective back on it. Sometimes you don't even want perspective. You just want to just say something or just get it out there. I believe that a lot of Hmong men, we going through the same stuff and going through a lot of the same challenges, but we just don't know about it because nobody wants to come out and say something. Because if they do, then like I said, people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're soft," you know, "Oh, like you're soft," or I don't want to be the type of person, but you're a, like a FAG or you're GAY, you know, then
Mhm.
and then a lot of Hmong men, they're like, oh, they don't want to come out and say it and stuff like that. So they're like, I'd rather just talk like men talk. Like we'll talk about sports, we'll talk about being tough, talk about this and that, but we won't really talk about our feelings. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it also takes a lot for a person to open up to other people too.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to open up to the right people, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of where a lot of people in general, or like from my observations, like Hmong men, they don't really open up because if you open up to the wrong people, even if they're like very close friends or close like family members, if you open up to them and they like make fun of you, maybe they're not
Right.
your people,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Because honestly, we're all human beings, like, we all
Mhm.
feel something, even if
Yeah.
that's like, anger is an emotion, and I feel like, just from my observations, like, anger a lot of Hmong men have felt
And
anger,
yeah.
and that's an emotion too. So if
Yeah.
you can feel anger, then I think you can be able to feel sad, and
Hmm.
upset and depressed and, just a lot of I think the one thing I don't understand is that, like, why like, how did the terms GAY or FAG or weak, how did people tie that to a person or a man being, like, vulnerable?
Right.
No, like,
I'll be honest.
what are your thoughts on that? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't understand why either. It's like even with the time. I think it's the time that I grew up in. It was a time when it was all about gang activity, and it's all about, you have to be the hard guy and stuff like that. And I think that kind of just trickle effect to us or our younger generation, even not just us, like maybe our younger generation, like, you know, we try to teach them like you gotta be tough and stuff like that. Even though like they're trying to I feel like our younger generation, which they're more open now, and then like the older generation, like the generation that I grew up in, they're like, you can't be like that. You gotta be like how I was, like how I had to be like how my father was. It's like I feel like we should be the ones to break that generational trauma because everybody gets trauma done. Nobody did like nobody is free
Mhm.
from that. But I feel like
Yeah.
we're the ones that can change it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so too, and I feel like just, like, kind of hearing you talk about that, like, how, like, our older Hmong men or, like, our what is it, dads and grandfathers, they tell the Hmong brothers right now, like, to, "Oh, yeah, you have to be like me, you have to be a strong man." I think it's because, like, what you said earlier, like, survival mode. It's because back then, like, I think their minds are still stuck to, like, the old country or
Ways,
like,
yeah,
like back in Laos, back in Thailand, where they had to, mote every day
right,
to eat, to
right,
to survive, but the thing is, we're here in America, we have jobs, right?
mm,
Food, you go to the grocery stores, you don't have to do all the manual labor anymore, and people think that the reason why you should, just kind of suppress your emotions is because if you do feel emotions, then you start to feel bad for people. Then you
mhm,
start sharing resources, right?
right,
And the
right,
thing is that like way back then, sharing resources wasn't a thing. Like you have to trade,
right, right,
it's like a yeah. So I think that's also a reason why it's like our grandpas and dads, they probably feel like because it's a survival tactic to not feel empathy, you know.
Mhm.
So I think that's a reason why they kind of raise their sons to be tough. But
Yeah.
in my personal opinion, I feel like a tough man is someone who is able to talk about their feelings openly and
Mhm.
someone who's able to be vulnerable and be honest. Yeah, the sort if you want to, hold like bottle up your feelings to be in a survival mode, go for it. But hey, like if you're trying to start a family, find a woman who like actually want to be with you, then I
Mhm.
think that being more open to your own feelings and talking about it and finding like the cause roots to why you act the way you do or like any like anger issues that you may have, I think those are very important too to like kind of talk about and discuss with your
Yeah.
partner. But in terms of accessing like mental health, right? Have you or like others faced like any kind of obstacles when trying to access like mental health resources? Or like how do you feel like cultural or religious roles kind of play a role in like the barriers of this?
I think we just don't know how to access it, how to like talk about mental health, like whether it's seeing a therapist or something like that. I think us in like a population, among population, we're just so scared of certain change like that or going to something like that, like where the other population, like with white people, they're not that scared. Like if they have a problem, they're like, okay, we're gonna go try to attack the problem. Or Hmong people, we're just so scared, like, you know, let's say not even with mental health, it's like addictions. We're so scared to admit that we're addicted to stuff. Like we're so scared to admit that we have mental health. And when we do know that we have mental health, we're so scared to go out there and reach or look for certain ways to like, okay, how do I help my mental health? We probably one of
Mhm.
the things is we just don't have that resource. Like nobody talks about it, so we don't know where to go or look for it or how to attack this. So then eventually we fall back into our old self where, oh man, now I don't know what to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like, with like my previous job, just talking about mental health within the Hmong community, not a lot of people know where to find resources. And I think that's the first step. If you don't know where to find it, you can't access it, right?
Right.
So the thing is, I do want to tell like the audience out there, like where to find resources. Like the internet has a really big network. Finding like local, networks and stuff like that. I think that is easily accessed now compared to like before with like our parents. They didn't have internet back then. They didn't have Google back then, to help find places. So I understand where that's coming from. Oh yeah, so like I also want to mention or like I also want to ask you, in terms of like barriers besides like knowing where to find resources, do you feel like there's any like cultural barriers
Oh
that you
yes,
feel yeah.
definitely. I think like especially if you're somebody that's very cultural or very like traditional, they never say like mental health is an issue. They always be like, "Oh, you're feeling that way. Maybe it's because there's this. So that's one thing for you. Let's do this. Let's go check it out. Maybe you have like your soul is sad or stuff like that. Like I remembered when my little sister, I know she was battling some mental health issues when she was younger. Um, my mom was like, let's just one thing for her. Just try to figure out what's up with her. And with the name shaman lady, she said, yeah, her soul is sad. Her soul is saying that you guys are not her family, which was pretty sad. But that could be a reason why. But what if that's not the only reason why? We never know because we just we're so traditional and so spiritual wise that sometimes with mental health issues, it's just not about culture or spiritual wise. It's probably is your mental health, like the way that you think. Sometimes
Mhm.
you just can't change the way you think.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like, I get a lot of that too, I understand where you're coming from, like, I come from a very traditional household too, so, obviously, the spiritual healing part of it is great, by all means, if you want to name for your child, go for it, but then you're going that and it's him or her still feels the same way, then it's more than just spiritual, it's the psychological part of it that I think that has to be, helped professionally.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing we could do is we have to understand, like, even though we love our parents and our OGs, I think we have to understand that we're in a new generation now. Um, Even though there is something that, could be traditional, like it said, you could do one thing and stuff like that. I feel like seeking all the help you can get, it's like the best way to go. And I think that for us, I think it's best to just have a platform out there for people to come talk about it, like right like this right now, or just have people see like, okay, I could go reach out for help instead of worrying about like, what my OGs might say about me, like, why are you seeking professional help? You're just wasting money, it's probably just something spiritual. I feel like we should just let our generation and the younger generation know that it's not always spiritual, because back in the days, our OGs, they didn't have that type of help and they didn't have money. So if anything, all they did was like, okay, it's something spiritual and we'll just work through it. Something spiritual and we'll just work. But with us, I feel like we have the means, the money, we have the resources, we have even now we have people out there like, you that are bringing people to come talk about this stuff, opening platform for people to understand like, we can go do this stuff. We don't have to. Yes, we do want to be like, you know, be really thankful for our parents, but at the end of the day, it's a new generation, it's something new, that they don't understand, and it's okay if they don't understand. You don't have to bring that upon them, but you don't have to bring their stuff upon yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. And I feel like it takes a lot for a person to understand,
Yeah.
right? Because I think for someone to understand, they have to be ready to understand. And
Yeah.
if they're not ready for it, that's okay. And sometimes you don't have to understand, just listen. I think that's
Hmm.
also another way that, can help reduce the like stigma around the topic of mental health, especially for like our Hmong brothers. They just need
Hmm.
someone to listen,
Right.
really. And also, just like from your own personal experiences too, like have you tried to seek professional help?
I'll be honest with you. I want to. Every time I talk to like my mom about it, I've had, I ain't gonna lie, mental health problems before, and then I've like you, I've been in depression. And then when I talk to my mom about it, she's just like, you're just, we're just wanting for you, we'll see what's wrong with your spirit and stuff. And yeah, they do it, but I'm not gonna lie. After that, I still feel the same. I think the fact that even though I didn't seek professional help, that I've accepted that I've had mental health issues, and I learned how to not just like cope with it, but learn how to like to instead of like just drinking and stuff like that, like put myself in a good state of mind to attack it. Like I know when I start having like if I start having mental health issues, I'm like, okay, I need to find my sanctuary where I feel safe in. A lot of the times for some people it might be like their rooms, their house, maybe like whatever. But for me, it's like me being in the gym. I love being in the gym because it's like everybody's doing their own thing, and I feel like it's my safe space. I can think like if I have like some thoughts, whatever, I could think about it in the gym. Like I'm in my zone. I could think about it, and I could just work out at the same time. It's always like a win-win situation for me. I know that it's not going to help everything, and I know that I should seek out for professional help to further it, just trying to attack it more. But as of right now, like for the past couple of years, that's what I've been doing, and it really helped me a lot. But I can't say that that's going to happen for everybody. Even sometimes when I do have like some issues and stuff, I'm always thankful that I have my brothers there to talk to. My brothers are there, and even though we don't see each other a lot, we just like see each other here and there. We just sometimes when we talk, we just talk about like all the shit that's on our mind. And sometimes I benefit from it. Sometimes they benefit from it. Like sometimes they get to talk about their feelings and what they're going through, and I can be there and talk to help them out. Sometimes I just tell them what I'm going through, and they can talk to me and help me out. But in a way, we're each other's like therapists. We're not like degree wise, but in a way, we kind of are just each other's therapists. And like I said, yeah, it'll be nice to find like somebody that's went to school for it, somebody that actually has a degree and maybe can give you steps or ways to help you attack it. And I feel like for me right now, I'm not gonna lie, I just think um I'm just I feel like it's an excuse, but I feel like I'm just too busy to kind of make time for it. But I also think it's just an excuse for me. And just listening to your podcasts and stuff like that, it does help me a lot too, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can relate. Oh my gosh, like this something that can help me out. You know what I mean?
Thank you. I know you've always been telling me that, oh, I'm doing a good job. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you for that. You are a true fan.
True fan from day one, man.
Yeah, thank
Day
you for
one.
that. But yeah, to kind of go back to what you're saying, the financial part, right,
Yeah.
of therapy, it's a lot. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, I've tried therapy before and I had to pay out of pocket, because
Hmm.
most therapy places, like, they don't accept public health insurance,
Hmm.
which I feel like a lot of Hmong families, or like working class families,
Right,
they have that.
right, right.
So, one, it is pretty expensive. So, I understand what you're saying. I'm sure there are also affordable ones out there. It's just sometimes I do know that, like, when you meet up with a therapist, they usually go through like a free consultation with you first.
Hmm.
So, just taking that step to, try, like, give it a try, go
Yeah,
through the
right.
consultation, see if you like it or not. Payment plans are always an option as well. And then I do also like the fact that, like, you acknowledged your own
Hmm.
mental health challenges, because it takes a lot of strength for someone to realize that, like, yeah, like, I'm not doing okay, you
Hmm.
know. And again, I'm glad that you have your support system with you, because honestly, for someone to be able to be vulnerable, it depends on the environment, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, all of us, we are not certified therapists, but certified therapists without the
Yeah.
paper. And you just got to build that safe space for people if you want to be there for them. And I think
Right,
it
right.
also comes with being open to educate yourself, to understand that, like, oh, whatever they're going through, it's something you can't relate to. But hey, like, I'll be here for you to listen, whatever you need me for. Like, I'll be able to help you with that. Obviously, finding professional help, it is helpful for sure if you want like a plan to
Right.
tackle like the roots, or like the causes of your mental health challenges.
Mm.
But in terms of like temporary relief, talking to people about it, opening up about it, that definitely does help too. I guess like a last question that I do have for you is that, like, what advice would you give to like Hmong men who are struggling with like mental health issues but feel like hesitant to seek help due to like their cultural expectations?
I'd say just try to surround yourself with people that are understanding. Like you said, some people could be family and friends, but they're not really your family or friends. Um, I think that's probably the best way to go attack it, especially as a Hmong man. You find somebody that or people that whether you could like relate to or you could talk about this with, and see if what are they doing if they're in this situation. What are they doing? You could get advice from them also. Like, are they seeking professional help? What are they doing with that type of mental health problem and stuff? Other than that, I think just don't think that that you're weak if you acknowledge that you have mental health issues, because you can get if you don't acknowledge that you have mental health issues, you're eventually gonna just not affect yourself, but you're gonna affect the people around you. Like, if you have a wife, you're probably gonna abuse your wife, or you're probably gonna put that against her. If you have kids, you're gonna, bring that trauma to them, and eventually it's gonna be a domino effect where they're just gonna keep on going and going and going. I feel like that's
Mhm.
it. Like, I think our generation, we should be the ones that we should just stop that trauma and, like, let's just stop it here and attack it. We should just find help if we need help. If we like, if you're just scared to go seek professional help, surround yourself with people that maybe you can talk to, or people you can relate to, and you can try to go on from there. Maybe they have some things that they can tell you that you've never seen in that light, or maybe you have some things that they don't know that you talk about, and you know they see you in a different light. Like, everybody has struggles and problems. Nobody is perfect. We're all human. I think everybody has to understand that we're all human. Nobody's perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's the thing about being human is you tend to think that their expectations of you, but really, I feel like it's just a projection,
Mm,
like because you have expectations of yourself. You think that other people have the same expectations about you, right? So you project it on other people, think that they have these expectations of you, but really, I really do like your advice that you're giving out to our Hmong brothers. And it is true, like us being human, we have emotions, a lot of complex emotions that even we don't even understand at the end of the day. But
mm,
hey, whatever you're feeling like is valid, right?
mhm,
Even if you feel upset at at like a happy event, you feel
mm,
upset.
mm,
Why? And let's talk about it. Let's talk
mm.
about your feelings. Like, why are you upset? And then you try to find that cause to that, so that way you know how to tackle it, right?
Right,
You just can't be upset and then ignore it, because if you
right,
ignore it, it's gonna be like brought up again. And
right,
you don't want it to be a continuing cycle,
right,
right?
right,
So like what Colin said, we gotta stand together and tackle this trauma that has been trickling down from generations to generations, for a long time. And like a survival instinct, like, yes, us as human beings, we have that naturally. But the thing is, you can have that survival instinct by also acknowledging that you are, also having like mental health challenges. If you can give advice to like your younger self, what would it be?
one of the probably biggest advice is, don't listen to what others like how others depict you, because I think that me like with that growing up, I think I've always been such, you could say it's like a people pleaser, but it's more like whatever people say, I take it to the heart. They're like, oh man, you're a kid without a dad, you're not gonna go nowhere in life, or you're gonna be a drug addict. And listening to that so much, it just, for me, it's like when I think about it, because when I was a little kid, I used to think a lot. Like I have a lot of like thoughts to myself, and I started thinking, and I think that affected me so much to the point where I just, like I said, one of the things was I just drowned myself in alcohol, and two is like I just didn't know what to do with life anymore. One day I was just sleeping in bed and I just didn't want to get up out of bed. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with life. I'm like, I'm so lost. I don't even know if I want to live life anymore. And then, eventually one day it's just like, you know, it's not their life. It's my life. I need to understand that. It's not their life. Like you said, we have such expectations for ourselves that we think like that we because of others, like okay, maybe that's what they want from me and stuff like that, and you give yourself that expectation. But I feel like you know have little stepping stones. That way you don't have such high expectations of yourself. Of course we all want to do stuff in life. Of course we want to be successful. Of course, we don't always everybody don't want to be like okay billionaires, but we want to be able to be financially stable. Like we don't want to be worrying about where our next meal is coming from or worried about our bills and stuff like that. We want to be financially stable. I understand that, but I think we should just be. If I was to say something to myself when I was younger, like you're doing good. I think a lot of our especially our younger Hmong generation brothers, they don't get that. People don't say that to them that too much to them. Like you're doing a good job. Even if you don't have good grades in school, you're still doing a good job. You're still growing up well as long as you're not out there, like I said, abusing stuff like people. I think that as long as you don't do that, you're not going down the wrong path. Then I feel like you're doing a good job. But then a lot of us younger generation, when we're growing up, when we're still young, nobody tells us that we're doing good. Everybody's just so into their own life that we don't get that. And then when we start growing up, you have two things. You can either take it and accept it, or you're looking for acceptance from other people. You start trying to become a people pleaser, and eventually, when you do that, you lose yourself. And I feel like that's kind of like where I went down the wrong hole. Or it was kind of like it wasn't like I was trying to people please, but I just wanted acceptance from everybody. I wanted to be that guy, like oh my gosh, you know when somebody accepts me, like they're like, oh, you're doing good, and I'm like, okay, my gosh, like I am doing good and stuff like that, and I want to do more stuff, and I start losing myself because I'm trying to people please so much that eventually I'm like, man, now I gotta go find myself again. Like this stuff that I'm doing, that people are saying, oh, that I'm doing a good job for. it's not even making me happy, I'm not even happy with it. Yeah, I'm happy hearing that from them, but I'm not making myself happy, like something that I don't even enjoy. And eventually you lose yourself. And then, when I be telling people, they always tell me like, oh, like, why don't you get in a relationship or stuff like that? I was telling them like, well, one of the main reasons is, well, of course, because I'm ugly and shit. But other than that, other than that, I'm like, I'm trying to find myself. And they're like, well, you seem like you found yourself. Like, you seem like you're a well, put guy. But I'm like, I, I may seem like that on the outside, but inside I know I'm not, and I don't want to bring that type of trauma or bring that type of, you know, issue when I get into a relationship, because it could be the right person. But what if I come and I bring that, then it's the relationship's not gonna work out, and what people call right person, wrong timing, how it might actually happen. So I'm always right now. I'm just always trying to work on myself. I want to find the stuff that I love, that I always, I've I've loved, and not just something that people love for me. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to find myself right now. And I've always wanted, if I could go back in time, just tell me, young me, like, you're doing a good job. Just keep working on what you want to do. Like, don't focus on what anybody else has to do. Don't focus on what anybody else has to say, and work on your own self. Eventually,
Mhm,
everything will be okay.
mhm. I find it so healing to hear you say that because I feel like I'm really similar to
Hmm.
you. Like growing up, like I never heard my parents tell me that they're proud of me. So when I hear it from outsiders, it like feeds my ego a bit. It makes
Yeah.
me feel like, oh, I am doing a good job. And like even now, I realize that my love language is like words of affirmation
Hmm.
because I crave hearing that I'm doing well, you're doing good, you're amazing, all those positive compliments that you can receive from your parents. I never received that. So hearing it from other people, it like kind of fills up the emptiness in my heart. But at the
Exactly.
same time, it's only temporary,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't hear it from the people you want to hear it from.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I get what you're saying. I feel like that's something that I can really relate to. And, to the listeners out there too, if this is something you can relate to, I'm very open to hearing your stories as well. But I think you also brought up a good point where, like, it's easier said than done. Like, don't listen to other people. They don't live the life you live, they don't pay your bills,
Right. Right.
yada, yada, yada. But the things people say, if it hurts, it hurts, right?
Exactly.
If it hurts, it hurts. And that's valid. And the thing is that, like, you have a lot of different paths
Hmm.
to take in what they're telling you. You can
Right.
either become what they're telling you or stay away from that and keep doing you. Pick your own path and go wherever you wanna go, like, kind of like your example, like, people were telling you, "Oh, yeah, you're gonna be a drug addict like your dad, you're gonna be dead like your dad, blah, blah, blah," all those mean things, and
Yeah.
first of all, I'm so sorry that they say that to you, like, that's something nobody should ever hear, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they stamped that on you, and
Exactly.
that's not okay.
Right.
The fact that they tell you that, it's like, it hurts because it brings, like, what is it? It puts doubt in your mind. It puts doubt in your
Yeah.
mind, like, "Oh, maybe I'm less than what I think I can be." I'm very proud of you and glad that, like, you are doing what you wanna do, you're still finding yourself, and I think the journey to finding yourself, it's a long journey, like, you learn about yourself every single day.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
really do. Even if you think you know yourself, like, well, like, you really don't. Let's say tomorrow, if I try a new food and I like it, that's something that I learned about myself, right? So, you always learn about yourself, and it's always gonna be a journey to finding yourself, and I'm glad that you are self-aware of that, like, you have your own mental health challenges, you don't want to get another person involved, like, being in a relationship because it's something
Mhm.
that you're not ready to be in,
Right.
so I'm glad that you are aware of that, and thank you for sharing. So to kind of end, today's session, I do have a quote that I saw online that I feel like it's really important or something that I feel like I can relate to. I
Right.
don't know the author, but it is: "Strength is not the absence of struggle, but the courage to face it." Embracing vulnerability and seeking help is a true testament to strength and resilience. So that's the quote that I picked out that I feel like is really important or something that can tie all of like our points made today or our discussion today into a pretty bow. So kind of
Yeah.
just your own thoughts on that quote. What do you think about it?
Okay. So I think it's a good quote. It's like if you have the courage to know, pretty much like understand your like attack your vulnerability and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing as a person. We like I said, we're all human. We all have flaws, and to have the courage to know that you're vulnerable to attack your like okay, your flaws. You can say it's flaws, but I'd say it's just knowing yourself better. Like you have mental health issues. Okay, I know myself now. I know why I have mental health issues, but I think more than that, to attack the reason why we have these things, we can become stronger. We can become better people. And with that, you can with becoming stronger, you can go and help other people too. That's been in similar situations and the steps that you take and you can show them the same ways and maybe they can learn themselves too and become better people also like we're flawed people and we always need to find ways to be better you know
Mhm,
as human beings and I feel like having the courage to understand your attack your vulnerability like okay I know this about myself and I know that people will probably judge me but then at the end of the day, it's like I know what the problem is, and I just need to know how to attack it. And I need to first step, like you said, is just to acknowledge that you have that problem. A lot of people they don't acknowledge it. They're like, oh no, it's not my problem, or I don't have a problem. And in the long run, it's not going to be good enough, or it's not going to be good for you. And for a lot of people, just having that courage to say, hey, yeah, I do have a problem. And just being vulnerable, yeah, it's in the long run, you're going to be a better person and you're going to give a good positive vibe environment around yourself, especially.
mhm. Yeah, thank you for, just explaining your thoughts to this quote. I really enjoy it because, instead of looking at vulnerability as such a negative way,
Right.
embracing it and seeking help, I think that really shows a person's like true resilience because when we talk about vulnerability, people tend to get scared,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
if you're scared of that, you're not ready to talk about it, that's fine.
Hmm.
But let's say, like, if you are ready to talk about it and be vulnerable, that is when you will be the strongest person you ever will be. And that's just a step to, like what Kong said, being the better version of you. And so thank you for, being on here with me and talking to me and, kind of explaining your mental health journey. It is definitely going to be a long one, but it's going to be worth it.
Yes.
We learn about ourselves every single day. We find ourselves daily. So keep hanging on there. And to the listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in as well. But before we actually end, I do want to give the floor back to Kong to talk about his last remarks.
Thanks, Jess, for having me on here again. I've been listening to your podcast since day one, and I've always said it's such a healing, experience to hear everybody else's stories and, just maybe to relate to. There's some that I can't relate to, and it's okay. It's still nice to know that it's out there, but just listening to it, relating to it, you know, I feel like it's a platform that everybody can come and be open about themselves and not be judged. And there's other people out there listening, and I hope that you get something out of her podcast, even if it's not something really big, a little something, in each of her podcasts. It was a fun experience. Thank gosh I didn't cry, but yeah, I have so much more things to say, but we don't want to go on talking for like 3 hours. We can always talk about this, when we meet up and just chill and stuff. But yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll listen to more of your podcasts coming out. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for being on here. I know, like what you say, you've been listening since day one, so I really do appreciate and I'm so grateful for you for your, unconditional support, and also to all of the listeners out there. Thank you all so much for listening and tuning in. You can follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify at Untamed Minds. I hope that the listeners have taken one or two things from our conversation today with my guest Kong. Other than that, thank you all so much, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.